Thank you very much, Adam. And I'm not sure you can call me a rock star anymore. I'm back in the office here after being on the road in the trailers. So not sure if that title fits, but welcome everyone. I'm really, really excited to be facilitating this panel today. My personal mission is to engineer happiness, and I'm convinced that with proper change management, with proper leadership, we can build this culture of trust. And that's what we're going to talk about today: leadership and trust, and insight into management strategies and the perception of agile deployment. And so I'd like to welcome Dana, Tracy, Esther, and Robert to our panel here and ask each of them just to give themselves a little bit of an introduction. So let's start with Dana Kawas from Thynkli. She is the co-founder and CEO. Welcome, Dana.
Hello everyone. Thanks for everyone for having me today. I'm Dana Kawas, CEO of Thynkli. Thynkli is a progressive digital business consultancy and technology services company that focuses on building digital twin of organization. In order to do that, we do focus on safe agile implementations when it comes to digital twins, as well as lean change management and upskilling people. So I come back, I do my background, 20 years of as a digital executive working in digital strategies, management consulting, and technology implementation. So I'm really happy and thrilled to have a great discussion with the rest of the group here.
And we're thrilled to have you, Dana, so thank you. Next up, we have Tracy Beam. She is the Principal Digital Strategy and Business Advisor for Strategic Transformation. Welcome, Tracy.
Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, all. My name is Tracy Beam. I'm CEO of Strategic Transformation Partners. Mostly, right now, I'm focused on applied innovation, servicing Fortune 100 companies across the globe, specifically energy, oil, and gas at the moment, but my background includes all industries, include high finance, high tech, manufacturing, life sciences, FinServe, most of the largest agencies in the world, is special focus in space and missile defense. And yes, it's early here.
Welcome, Tracy. We really appreciate that diversity to bring to the conference. So next up, Esther Diederen with Spirit Energy, the digital transformation lead there. Welcome, Esther.
Hi, thanks. Well, thanks for having me. I said I'm Esther. I'm part of the digital team within Spirit Energy, and within there, I'm the people and process transformation lead. So I mainly look at all of the process optimization work that we're doing from a digital perspective, and a lot of the automations, as well as being the change management go-to person when it comes to digital, when it comes to agile and Scrum. And we have been with Spirit. We are now, I think, year 3 within our digital journey. So 3 years ago, a small group, we wrote a digital white paper. So what can digital bring to Spirit? And we have been implementing it since June 2019. And I think before that, I've been in the oil and gas industry, and before I was within management consulting. And I think most of the stuff that I've always been doing has been optimization. I think we can do things always in a better way for an organization to get more value, but also more importantly, in a better way for people to actually have a bit more fun in their work and find it a bit more interesting and challenging. That's me.
Hey, welcome. Thank you, Esther. Lots of value discussions in the conference so far, and a theme that we'll be continuing on here today. Last but not least, Robert da Silva Bressan with Petrobras. He is the Subsea Automation and Digital Solutions Group. So welcome, Robert.
Hello, Dan. I introduce myself. I have 10-year experience in subsea systems, and in the last 2 years, I've been marching through digital projects, especially in change management. And more recently, I have had this experience being the product manager from the SAFE framework, as Don has spoken. Just remember that. And delivering value, get people to embrace Agile is my current task here. So very excited to be here, and I hope we will have a great discussion today.
I am confident it will be great. So welcome to all of the panelists. I hope everyone listening is as excited as I am, and thanks for bringing in the Agile component there. Bressan is something we want to tug on a little bit further. So, look, according to Wikipedia, we have a digital twin defined as the virtual representation that serves as the real-time digital counterpart of a physical object or process. So I'm sure everyone's seen that or has heard different aspects of what a digital twin could be. But I just wanted to share that from my experience, and maybe in more pragmatic terms, I really view a digital twin as a way to predict the future. And I think it really is the closest that humanity have come to being able to predict the future. And I believe that's one of our greatest aspirations as a species. And so to help set the context to talk about leadership and trust, I thought it'd be valuable to ask each of our panelists just to share their own personalized interpretation of what a digital twin means to them. And maybe Dana, let's start with you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I want to highlight that Thynkli is part of the founding member of the Digital Twin Consortium. And this is we have a 3T group that is responsible for really setting standards, taxonomy, terminology. And one of them is really the definition of a digital twin. And again, bringing people from different industries, like what does it mean? And what you said, Ben, about virtual representation of real world entities and process synchronized in a specific frequency and fidelity is a terminology. The two things that I do want to add to that is that digital twins use real-time data and historic data to represent the past and present and simulate the future. So this is, if we're using only like historical data, that's not considered a full digital twin. We need to be able to have the real-time data so we can actually predict the future. The other two things that I do like to add to that definition that is very important, and we'll touch base, I'll talk more about it throughout the session, is that digital twin systems transforms businesses. It's tied to decision making and taking effective actions. And this means that you do want to motivate that digital twin by business outcomes and power it by integration, identify the right use cases for it, and build it on data and the domain knowledge. So those are addition kind of highlights to the definition of digital twin.
Thanks, Dana. And I love that you bring up the past, because they say history doesn't always repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes. And so you're right, it's really difficult to predict the future without an understanding of how we got here. Esther, would you like to go next? What a digital twin means to you?
Yeah, I think I can't get a better definition as the official definition, but for me, indeed, it's a virtual representation of an object or a process. And I think when I think about digital twin, yes, you have the technology and everything there, but I think it's the vehicle that actually makes a company be truly agile. Because when you have a digital twin, when you have the past information, the future information, and the real-time data, then you are able to actually get the insights and be able to make decisions quick and move quicker. So I think for me, the digital twin is something that truly helps an organization to become agile. So not just say that you're agile, but you have the tools, the information available to make quick decisions and to change course when you need to, and to have things delivered in value for the company quite quicker than you would have with your normal processes.
Perfect. Thanks, Esther. So it's your contention that it's difficult to truly say that you're agile if you don't have some kind of digital twin to back it up. I love that. Yeah. Bressan, your thoughts?
It's really difficult to compliment such great from them, but one thing I want to point out that what if scenario is where we generate value from digital twin. We can make decisions around that. So every time we have a model which allows us to make a decision, we have a digital twin. If we can gather all the data from past and current time, that decision will be better. But any model could be a digital twin. So if it has what if scenario, we can go further and we can generate values. If it does, we can't allow this decision making, we don't see much value on a digital twin. It loses its soul.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Bressan. And you really hit on making better quality decisions. And Esther talked about making quicker decisions. And so it sounds to me like we can really use our digital twin to get the best of both worlds. So go from this or mindset of scarcity into an and mindset where it can be both quicker and better decisions. So I love that.
Yeah.
Tracy, anything to add?
Very little to add. You guys nailed it. To me, really, a digital twin is just another strategic tool to explore and discover new opportunities for delivering innovation, especially breakthrough innovation, as well as new business models and new customer experiences that ultimately are going to deliver even greater value back to the business.
Perfect. And we're ending on that theme of value again, which has been so critical through this conference. And we're all representing businesses, so it needs to remain at the forefront of all of our minds. So let me ask then, how can we embed digital twins into our workflows rather than bolting them on to make sure that we're building this culture of trust and that we're leading and setting our companies up for success? And maybe Tracy, if we could start with you.
Well, I really feel like our roles as innovation leaders are focused on helping the business drive those innovation programs forward so that they're more productive and more effective and can realize the objectives that the business has set for them. The two big key tasks that we've got to take on are really driving that broad engagement across the organization and many times externally, and also to accumulate again early, aggregate and evaluate all of the new ideas and opportunities that those engagements will produce, as well as to drive and facilitate the selection process for choosing those that will become the projects, pilots, or proof of concepts that the business is going to take on.
I love that term you said, it to accumulate and aggregate, and there's really no better way to lead and build trust, right, than to bring together to make the whole greater than the sum of the parts.
Yep.
Esther, what do you think about this embedding digital twins question?
Well, it is a bit of a difficult question for me to answer because we have tried to get a digital twin within Spirit, and we're not there yet. So I think from that perspective, it's hard for me to comment on that because, as I said, we don't have a digital twin as such. But within our digital journey, and when it comes to innovation, I mean, we are working a lot with data to get real-time data, and what we have learned in the last 3 years, how you can get it incorporated is by starting with that why question. So why are we doing it? What do we want to achieve, and what do I want to be capable of? And that is that, it's for a Dutch person, difficult word to say, a cumulative value that Tracy was talking about. So what can I do now that I wasn't capable of? What do I want to fix, or what do I want to be better off? So in that sense, I think having that stepwise approach and really looking at, so why am I doing it? And I think Dana referred to it as well. You have to find good use cases. So you have to find use cases that immediately give some value to the company, so they can see what we are doing, because it's hard work, it's grafting, not everything is visible. So by doing little things and by immediately giving the value to the company, they will start seeing what you're trying to do, and that leads to people being more innovative and trying to move forward.
And I appreciate your vulnerability there, Esther, acknowledging that Spirit hasn't yet nailed the digital twin. And I think you're in good company, that everyone's on this journey at a different point. But I love your comment of starting with why. Simon Sinek has a lot of writing on this material and others. And I think you're spot on. Start with why, make the case, identify incremental changes that can start to build momentum. And again, back to that theme of trust. Dana, would you like to follow up?
Dana.
I think Dana might
your
be
mic
muted.
is off.
Happens to all of us.
There you go. Yes. In order
We got
for
you
us
now.
to really, yes, good. In order for us to really integrate this digital twins in our workflows and how we do things, is really look at it. It's not only a technology, it is a business transformation tool. And that means, going back to what Tracy's saying, address Tracy and Esther about the why, is that really tie it to business outcome. We have to understand what are the business outcomes we need to achieve, and that would be related to the use cases, because digital twins might not be applicable for all use cases. So once you know the business outcome, understand the use cases, then you'll be able to set, and now kind of that's your strategy, then you'll be able to execute it in all departments and integrate that as part of the execution. Everyone is going to look at the technology as a way to achieve a business outcome, whether it's cost reduction or process improvement, whatever the business outcome it is, then it's part of how we do things. And this is how we should look at it strategically as a business transformation tool.
Great point. I think we can get caught up in the 3D renderings and the magic of the technology, which is a component, but we need to keep sight of that bigger picture to truly transform. And what better way to build trust than to stress, here's the business outcomes, and tie those to individual workers' deliverables. So some great points, Dana. Thank you. Bressan, your thoughts on how we can embed digital twins?
The reason was the primary. We have the reason is the thing that makes us avoid the cargo culture. So, like the other lady said, we have start small, increment, get some value that will be trust, and more we get in the processes. We are trying also to implement some digital twins in Petrobras. We are heading to them. And the first thing we asked was the reason. What will we outcome with this? And so that comes push forward.
And so that leads us, Bressan, you started touching on this about the process to be able to deliver digital twins successfully, and especially be able to deliver digital twins at scale. And so maybe I'll ask you to build a little bit on your last comments. In how do you think leaders can encourage and enable a structured and iterative process that is both consistent and scalable for digital twins across their enterprises?
First, every idea must start somewhere with a reason, right? What was the reason from being in Petrobras? Produce oil, gas, right? Being a major in oil and gas. So what we have to achieve that, and why that, and why that. Then we will get at the reason for that specific process. That step, one step at a time. So this way we can start an idea, we can get some small result, and that comes as a snowball, right? So you get some short, small result, you get attention, and people will increment, and that starts as a snowflake that is small, and then everything becomes viralized. Then people will start asking for you. The people will have a new look on what you are doing. And for scaling, SAFE has been playing an important part here in Petrobras because it structures the way it expands. So we get this inside a small team, then and the team comes in a portfolio and everything, and helps delivering the snowball, so we don't have an avalanche. We have a controlled process, just a bigger snowball.
Yeah, perfect. And reiterating the point we touched on earlier about asking the why, and then I really like your snowball analogy. I'm actually visualizing a digital twin of a snowball coming down a hill and potentially even into an avalanche of opportunities, not the kind that suck people up and and kill a whole lot of folks, but obviously getting that momentum. And I love what you said: start small, build it up, snowball it, get to where it has its own momentum, and people can really get on board and trust what we're trying to do. So great comments. Tracy, what would you like to add to that?
I think probably preaching to the choir here, but drive early wins and make sure you establish those targets. Those are the things that I've seen the most success from leaders, in developing that footprint for innovation within their companies, right? Going back to all of the different mechanisms of engagement and making sure that you're communicating those successes out.
Right, and Adam keyed us off with change management and the need to communicate, and it's difficult to build trust if there's a secret society making those kind of decisions. So great points on communicating and empowering folks. Esther, your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, it's around. There's probably two things you have to, in my opinion, you have to build trust around the data. So you have to make sure that the foundation that you're doing, and indeed start small, try to find one data stream or one specific area that you want to map, that you want to have past, real time, and eventually the future in it. So build the trust with the data, because depending where your company comes from, within Spirit at the start there was no trust in data. So a lot of the discussions were always around, well, is it actually correct? Well, I don't know if it's correct, because yeah, we don't know if it's correct unless 10 people have manipulated the data and put it in a PDF. Whereas now I think the trust of the data is there. So when you build that trust, and then as Tracy mentioned, and Bressan, it's building the trust in delivery. So look what you do, look what I've done. Now the company is capable of doing X, Y, and Z, or now such and such person has time to actually look at the value of certain things instead of actually getting the data there. So it's really it's that way of building trust on the data and building trust on your delivery, and then gradually you start going and like mentioned, communicate. Not anything, not something around, oh, something is going to change, because it's like, well, no, but what? But communicate in the capabilities and functionalities, and then maybe communicate to the people who are really interested about the technology, because that might get them sparked up with all the 3D and all the fancy stuff in there. But for other people who are not technology, what can I do now that I couldn't do before? What can a company do now that it couldn't do before? I think that's so building trust on data and on delivery, and then communicate out what you're doing. That would be my three points, I think.
A great question. What can we do now that we couldn't do before? Because I would contend that if before you're spending your time arguing about the data quality and arguing about where it came from and whose data is better than someone else's, then you are not having valuable discussions about how to use that data. So
Yeah.
I love that you brought, I think we tend to think of leadership and trust between people, and you brought another facet to that of trusting in the data, which for a digital twin is the lifeblood and the core for it to function. So if folks, I do a raise your hands, but I can't see everyone in the audience. But I would wager that if I asked folks to raise their hand if they've ever had a conversation arguing about data quality, I think there'd be very few people with their hands down. So thanks for bringing that up, yeah. Esther. Dana, your thoughts?
All right, I do agree and echo what they're saying. I do want to drill down a bit deeper on the trust, because when we talk about trust in leadership or data, we're talking about behaviors, right? Like it's a very human thing that people feel to trust something, and this comes down to the culture and those unspoken rules and how people are behaving and doing things. So really, when it comes to the points about communicating, it's very important to highlight that we do have the how do you call it, the attributes, use cultural hacks to be able to change people's behaviors. And if we're talking about innovation, then we are talking about really talking about failures. How can communicate really, then we need to display those prototypes, and this is kind of be a small action that can be taken and look at failures in a way that are not negative, but more things to learn from, and that can slowly build trust. Also, when we're talking about trust in digital twins, we're talking about systems of systems. We're talking about breaking down silos. So the trust is in data, but also within people, like departments, and really remove the barriers so you can do the sharing. So really trust it, and let trust, the big word, but really you can hack it, and in a very specific area by just introducing these small little actions that would inject behavioral changes, people perceive failure, really kind of step up and be able to share data and all of that. So those are like just a kind of quick example how we can hack the trust issue, especially when it comes to data and people.
You know, I remember when hack used to be such a negative term, and we've really turned that around. And I love your use of a cultural hack. Is there an example you can share of a cultural hack for the folks listening here that's maybe been successful in your experience, Dana?
Yeah. So definitely the one thing about them, they have to be small. Introducing big changes, when we talk about agile and lean, introducing big change management approach is not working anymore for organization. They look at it as a cumbersome activity. So thinking about when we talk about lean change management, small incrementals. For example, when it comes to really innovation, one of the things creativity and innovation is really talk about display failed prototypes. So you would find a way from a department perspective to really ask people to look at what went wrong. If there's a failed implementation. I mean, in Agile, we do have retrospective. So this is part of Agile. You do retrospective. You do want to display these examples, and you do want to share them with people and pick up on the lessons learned and move forward with that. So you can have reminders on these failures. You can be able to really share them with other departments and really speak about them, and that kind of be like all level of management and leadership participating in that. So it's looked
thanks for
at
sharing.
as a positive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Easier said than done, obviously, because failure is ingrained. And you talked about culture. Failure is ingrained a lot of times as well, about as negatively as hack used to be referenced, right? When people were hacking into things. And so it's about turning that around, maybe taking some insight from, I think it was Edison who said, I didn't fail inventing the light bulb. It just took me 10,000 times to get it right. It's difficult to innovate. If every innovation you come up with had no failures along the way, then you probably should be asking yourself, was it really innovative? Were you trying hard enough? Thank you, everyone, for that. So we had a lot of questions there, a lot of responses there, talking to different aspects of trust. So I'd like to unpack that a little bit further and ask how leaders can build that culture of trust to really foster and reinforce innovation, relentless improvement with our digital twins, and make sure that, well, frankly, people see them as what was the term Tracy used earlier, aggregating and augmenting their capabilities instead of potentially replacing or deprecating them. So, Tracy, do you want starting with this?
Sure. I feel like if we're embarking on a mission to build a bottom-up or a participatory innovation culture, that we need to take very specific steps as leaders to engage our stakeholders in the broader innovation program. I mentioned earlier having those robust mechanisms of engagement in place. Those could typically be seen as ongoing venues for ad hoc collaboration, various engagement campaigns focused on specific events. Again, like my colleagues have said, small, incremental, digestible bits of change, right, that really will influence and build a stronger innovation culture from the bottom up. And I think that the other thing that's many times overlooked is putting in place that really strong rewards and recognition program that will continue to drive, motivate, inspire, and empower the culture of innovation within your organization. And I think that's probably the best as leaders we can do to really help light the fire.
It's been said that people respond perfectly rationally to the reward system in which they find themselves. And so if we don't get that right, then we can't expect a different outcome. Bressan, your thoughts on building the culture of trust?
For us, among getting the lead of show that everyone can do transformation. It's everyone. may do some transformation. When you have that Excel spreadsheet that has some hacking, you have organized your data, you have done some organization stuff, some rules. You know. But for that happen, what we can do as leaders is leave people idle time. You know. Because if we are overwhelmed with all activities, no, you must share, must go. Uh, here's your goal and go for it. And with little to no time, we won't have innovation. We can't think a little outside the box. And for people who started the fire, other people won't see the fire. Won't get engaged. Also, if they don't have the time to see the starting fire. They won't, if they don't have a little time to see, hey, this is happening, I want this too. We won't have the snowball of trust, of development, of deliveries. So also we can give some rewards to our collaborators, but leave them time to think, leave them time to get engaged.
You know, in the same story there, you used an analogy of a snowball and starting the fire. So I'm not sure what's happening with the weather there in Brazil right now. But that was a great point about give people time to start their fire. Right, everyone can, and actually everyone has to be involved in innovation. It's back to what Tracy was touching on, the bottoms up. Right, we need top down support, but it can't be a small little innovation group off in the corner building digital twins and then lobbing them over the fence to everyone else. So. Love the visual of starting the fire and giving everyone time to tackle that. Dana, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do want to say when it comes to trust, it's really also accountability, right? So in order for people to trust others or leaders, or you gotta have that accountability, which kind of embraces failures as well. So if you gotta stand up and again, leaders in all different levels, you have leaders on different levels of the organization, is really standing up for that, and be okay to acknowledge and take accountability of any mistake or anything happened. So that would increase the trust for sure. The other thing, going back to the snowball and fire analogy, is really reduce the emphasis when it comes to innovation and agile, reduce the emphasis on the process and the bureaucracy. Especially when it comes to big organizations with old way of doing things, people like get stuck on the process. So give people the problem to solve. Start thinking like, this is the problem we want to solve. Here are the principles and guidelines, and let the process emerge. Let people be part of it to emerge the process of solving that problem. So focus on what needs to be fixed, or instead of how. And that would start sparking more innovation, trust, engagement, and agility. So this is just a simple thing as like away from bureaucracy steps that people need to take in order to achieve or solve a problem.
Yeah, perfect. So we had start with why, and it sounds like right after why comes the what, and then let the how emerge. And I think we've seen successful transformational companies employing digital twins that have reimagined how things are done, whether that's transportation, retail, etc. So some really, really good points. Esther, would you like to wrap us up on this topic of trust?
Yeah, no, I think everything is said, and there's a lot in there. And indeed, I think having it part of the reward, so having it in your personal objective, make it, if you are, and I think we in oil and gas, we should be there now, make it almost as important as our safety culture. So we have been able to establish a safety culture. So we should be able to establish an innovation culture by having innovation moments, by indeed giving rewards, or you have these lone dancers in an organization, I call them, who have these bright ideas and are trialing something. Put them in the spotlight as a leader, help them, let them shine, and people will follow them, start following them. And I think what Dana is mentioning, the idea of leaving a little bit less of the process and telling not people how to do their job. being able to be creative and be actually accountable for what you deliver, that will give you a spark or your fire, as Bressan mentioned. I think those are quite important. And when it comes to leadership, is and embrace that. Don't be afraid of what's happening, or that you might be losing a little bit of control, because you still get your problem fixed. The only thing is maybe not in the way how you would have dictated it, but in a different way.
So many good points, and I really just want to highlight that safety culture, which if you go back 20 years was arguably absent. And so it is a great role model for those that maybe haven't thought about it, the innovation moments, or trying to drive where our safety culture is not a bolt-on, right? It's not, well, that's the safety inspector's responsibility to keep people safe. No, everyone owns this. Everyone's accountable for this. Yeah. And you touched on some points of relinquishing control, which I really do want to pull out a little bit further, but I see a live question came in, so I want to just make sure we cover that and just give a plug. We have a couple more prepared questions, and then I'd love folks in the audience, please do put your questions in the chat. We'll get to as many of those as we can. So question here from Jonathan. It'd be good to have one of the panelists comment against standards for digital twins that are already out there, the ISO and the Flex. Fit for purpose digital representation of an observable element with synchronization between the element and its digital representation. So the standards already exist in this space. So Dana, maybe given your role in the consortium, would you like to take a shot at responding to Jonathan?
Yeah, sounds good. If I understood the question correctly, that there are already standards out there. They are already, Digital Twin Consortium is in progress of, if you follow what they're publishing, they just published actually the digital twin capabilities, which would think about it as a timetable for digital twin and all the capabilities. However, the high level standards has to do with synchronization, and it depends on how fast you're doing that between the physical and the digital entity. But also one of the key things too is not all the capabilities of a digital twin will exist for every use. So I do encourage you to look at the current publication that got published, I think yesterday or so, regarding the digital twins, and these are customizable to the use case. So there are certain elements that need to be in a digital twin, but also depends on the use case that might change which capability you would draw from. I hope that helps.
Yeah. A great point, Dana, about it's back to what we've been saying through the questions here of identify your use case, identify where you want to start, get started, and understand that may be different. It will be different for different companies based on their maturity, based on their capabilities, and based on the business outcomes that they're trying to drive with digital twin. I'll open it. Any of the other panelists want to respond to Jonathan's question?
May I? So, when we talk about digital twins, we get about data acquisition, we get about the modeling. We have some standards like the IFC, the BIM model, but we see research in academia, we have very trouble yet with the hardware device. We're still not major with those standards. They are being built currently. We have some leverage. We have discussions with we have some IOGP standards that are emerging, but that's not. But we can't simply cover all. We have to do some personalization with your use case, but those standards are here to at least set the pace. We are developing them, we are leveraging them, and we might get in very near future more standardization as more use cases become wider spread.
Yeah, great points, Bressan, and similar again around. It sounds like as leaders, there's a balancing act to make between leveraging what standards can offer to help, and then honing in on the things that we think are custom or do need to be customized, again, based on your company, your culture, your use cases. So it reminds me we're twinning we're doing a bit of a process twin at Chevron, and we've got the slogan for it is standard and specific, and it's obviously a bit of a mind bender that we want to have standardization as much as possible, and we want the customization. So very much what you were alluding to there, Bressan. Just also a comment from Russell, just echoing what Esther said about the safety culture being a great example to use for innovation. So let's move back to where we were getting to there. And please do keep putting your questions into the chat. We'd love to get these panelists to respond to those. But Esther had just left with, it's difficult to perhaps relinquish control. And so a question for the panel to consider is advice for leaders to do just that. So to lower their egos, to relinquish control, to show vulnerability, to encourage that a shared accountability that Dana was talking about for the implementation of digital twins. Advice, tips, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And let's start with you, Esther, since you were on that thread previously.
Yes, I think relinquish control sounds quite hard, but from my experience, from what I've seen here, is that the top, and I'm talking about real-time data and getting, because we don't have a digital twin yet, but if I look at our XCOM, I don't think they feel like they are relinquishing control. For them, it's quite good to have the ability to look at the data and to go into the level of detail that they want to be at their time. So they don't have to pester people with asking questions, but they can click on and go as deep as they want to get all the answers. Where sometimes the friction starts is that middle layer of management, because they used to have the ability to massage the data or to manipulate and present it in such a way that not that we're hiding things, of course, but that they knew exactly, they could drive the questions that were going to be asked. And they lose that because people now have access to everything on a lower level. And I think that's where sometimes the relinquish of control feeling probably comes from. And the idea of what we said about not telling people to do how they should be doing the job, but what they should be doing it. I don't think it's relinquishing control. It's actually, it could be seen as being more in control, because you're more in control of the outcome of actually driving the value for the company, because that's what you are setting as a leader. So in that sense, it may be not lose of control, but more actually driving the value for the company. It's, have I found a hack yet how to get through it? Not yet. I think it's by delivery and showing results and showing what the company is capable of, and making sure that what was said at the start, it's breaking that silo. So don't keep it within production or within wells, but share how good things are when you actually combine your knowledge and you combine your information. So I don't necessarily have a hack for people to be able to use, but again, it's showing the data, showing the trust, and showing that it is a form of control that you're losing, but in the other sense, you are actually helping the company further, and you are setting more of a strategic direction than telling somebody exactly how to do their job.
Wow. Yeah. So while they may lose some of,
I speak very quick. Sorry.
No, you covered so many things, and that frozen middle just get a hard rap, don't they? But I think there's something to be said there around, they may need to lose some of that control of coming in the meeting with all the data massaged and they know all the possible answers, versus coming in and referencing a digital twin for which no one can know all the answers, and being a little vulnerable that, well, let's talk through this, and I hadn't really thought of that outcome, but maintaining more control of the end results of the deliverables. That's another mind bender to chew on, but very powerful, Esther. Tracy, your thoughts on relinquishing control?
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit earlier, and I just want to double down on what my colleagues have said about making sure that we establish a minimum of that bureaucratic management and have a much more empowered approach to governance that relies on both individual and team skills with a shared set of values and principles to achieve the OKRs, or the objectives and key results that we've mapped out for our programs. Another thing, and a part of that cultural change, is really encouraging that teams to fail fast, to learn fast, and be okay with that. That's also highly empowering, and goes back to that control. And then there's the flip side of that. I think that because we're all shifting towards these agile constructs, and I would say energy, oil, and gas being kind of a lagger in the adoption of those agile or safe focused behaviors, we need to separate that from leadership agility, right? And recognize that not all projects lend themselves to the agile development process. Anything that has really long lead times, capital intensive products being developed, those that have revision cycles of weeks to months instead of days to hours, don't necessarily lend themselves to the agile development process. However, having said that, you can still lead with agility and have those agile kind of cycles or sprints within that greater, more gate controlled process, the traditional way that we used to work, right? So that you can iterate in certain aspects of the overall or larger solution. So all of those things, I think, kind of are go hand in hand with being able to develop that.
I like what you said. So leaders, even when they are looking at something longer term, truly transformational, maybe a twin of their process or operation that would reimagine it, they can remain agile in their leadership style, even if agile or scaled agile methodologies aren't being used at that point to deliver. Yeah, great point. And it speaks to that less bureaucracy, which probably ties to what Esther was talking about with some of the historical middle management behaviors that we've seen. Dana, your thoughts?
I'm trying to find a real tangible cultural hack that would fit that. Just to add to what everyone said on the panel, because definitely part of it is one thing, to go back to the agility. When we talk about cultural change, it's a paradox, right? And it's not an easy thing to do, and you got to do it incremental in a way. So an agile is a mindset. So you got to start thinking differently by looking at the real agile implementation and how it's incremental. You do want to think about those cultural changes to be incremental as well. So when it comes to really control, just carve something out as a leader, as any part of your organization, part of your role. Just carve something for your team where they do have, and you can set a day, not allowed to ask for approval. So I'm going to give you out this piece, and there's no approval. You're going to go run with it and solve this problem, tie it to the outcome. So you might not be able to give out everything. And again, this might, scare us leaders, like, oh, my bonus is on the line, so I can't give everything out. But you can definitely carve something out of your department, of your function, of your tasks, and empower people to take role into that. And then showcase whether the outcome is passed or failed. Just showcase that change, communicate, share it with the team, and learn from it, and give more and give more. As a leader now, you're empowering your team to do the work, to innovate, to take ownership, and you are actually lessen that control. So this is just a simple thing that leaders can think about of, okay, what can I carve out of my area, and I can really give it to someone without approval, let them go with it and see what they're going to do. So that's a small thing that can be, in a safe way, can start foster that collaboration, trust, innovation, agile mindset.
I like that.
I hadn't.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Esther.
No, I just want to say I really quite like that. That's quite powerful.
I agree. I heard you say, and then don't let them come to seek your approval, and ban them from asking approval, which is powerful. And the challenge, as you alluded to, is then when the outcome is undesirable, how to make sure that person saves face, that it's not seen as, well, look, that person didn't ask for approval and their career is ruined. And so once again, we find ourselves back at the reward mechanism that we as leaders are setting and the pace. But I'll try that hack for sure, because I've never actually banned someone asking for approval. And I think in the right setting with the right risk profile, that can be very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Bressan, what do you think about relinquishing control? It doesn't sound like it's easy from the prior three panelists.
Well, coming from an operator, our routine in Petrobras is doing mega projects with the waterfall style, with everyone collaborating. So when we started talking Agile, who's the telling? So, well, and slowly we are empowering people. We are not when we get the management to see that those results come from that small step it came. No. Oh, and it has this agile, hey, what went wrong? What went wrong? What can we do better? You know? We start to build that trust, we start lowering their egos, and everyone starts winning. The management who could lead the the people could lead the time to everyone develop, and people who will be more motivated, who will be more keen to innovation. But it's a really hard topic for for me to get an agile where we deliver everything from the key values in a waterfall style. I confess.
Right, and a reason for that is in a high risk industry where mistakes can be life threatening. We develop those waterfall processes to protect ourselves, and so it can be difficult to make changes in some of these aspects where maybe the risk profile is a little different. And I like what you said, that leaders can become more comfortable at this because they'll start to see the results coming more quickly, and if those results are favorable, then it's reinforcing behavior to help them to maybe ban a few more people asking for approval, as Dana put it. Let me see here. We have another question come in, a live question. So let's jump to this. We have a question from, oh, it looks like it's directed to someone else in the conference. So apologies. Trying to be real time here. So Bressan, let's go just a little bit deeper there into the agile development, because you talked about the difficulties and the difficulties in going from the traditional waterfall approach at Petrobras into an agile approach. And so agile tends to start with small groups, but how do we transition that and scale that to the wider audience successfully, so that it doesn't just remain an isolated small group? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, communication is key. Dana has spoke a lot of times, communicate, and that is what really starts. Because if we start small group and that group keeps closed, we don't communicate, we start get more religious, right? With their own things, with their own closed heads. When we communicate, we enable people to have opinion about what your work. Now they can get engaged. So it's we have to identify all the stakeholders who might do a great change management, because when people get those changes naturally, oh, this can be useful, this can change my life, they embrace it more. And so the fight resistance, personalized to experience for different stakeholders, and we move on. And applying safe methodology, we have been successfully applied for many departments in Petrobras, not all yet, but or when we have those smaller forums, then we get the chance to show everyone what has been doing. People get more engaged, and we can finally expand and avoid those resistance. The way we can scale.
Yeah, perfect. So communicate, and then communicate. Do you think there's a risk of over communicating, or have you not seen that in your experience? It's just we need to communicate more?
Everything has a big limit, right? Even water can kill us, right? If we drink too much, we drown. So, no, ask people. Right? We have teams, we have the email, we have workplace, we have now other solutions for getting people feedback. Now, people who get interested will message you back, you'll get, so you can feed them more. But no, we have when we define a change management strategy, we get account of who are the people who need those communications, who are the people who need just a letter, just an email saying, "Hey, we are having news here. Go check it out." So for different people, we have different treatments. So and there are a lot of people who are around, so it's very difficult to over communicate, but sometimes happens.
I agree. And Tracy, you've been living in the world of communicating for some time. So what are your thoughts on successfully scaling leadership behaviors to successfully scale these digital twins? I think you might be muted too, Tracy, which we've only had two this whole panel, so that's pretty good.
That's awesome. There was a garbage truck outside my house, so I did mute for a sec.
Yeah.
But we've been talking
Thank you for
about
that.
a lot of these things throughout and bits and pieces. And while Bressan was talking, I started making some mental notes or jotting a few things down. So I'll read to you what I wrote. Establish targets, making sure they're thoroughly understood. Level of engagement needs to be there to be able to really drive the volume and the caliber of new ideas that are coming out of those engagements. Making sure that we assess and monitor at each pipeline stage or phase within that life cycle, meaning strategy, capture, evaluation, selection, initiation, pilot, and scale, the 6 stages that we talk about in the innovation cycle. And then reporting out the value to business and to the business executives and making sure that they're fully understood and they're on target for the investment being made. And if you do this throughout the entire life cycle, at each stage, you're going to make sure that you have that opportunity to find anomalies, which could be good anomalies or bad anomalies that you need to take corrective action around and figure out what that mitigation is. And I think that all of those things that we've been discussing, that kind of encapsulates them in a more logical order, I guess, in my mind. And if you break those down, those are kind of the keys to success in putting a really good innovation program in place and making sure that you have the controls, that you're able to scale the right projects and you have the right resources engaged with the right inputs along the whole life cycle. So really just kind of checking the box against everything that all of you have said.
Well, it's a nice summary, and you hit on the anomalies being good or bad. And I think especially as you're scaling a digital twin, by definition, you make some assumptions, you build it out, and as you scale it, you will expect and hope for anomalies to show up. And there's a tendency to view those as bad. And back to what Dana and others have said about failing fast, it's not that it's bad, it's neither good nor bad, it just is. But let's use that anomaly to make an update to enhance our digital twin and to make the technology more useful for then more scaling. So I thought that was a great point about the good or the bad anomalies.
Also, it's also an amazing opportunity to identify adjacent innovation. So a lot of those anomalies may become the next idea or the next good breakthrough that you're having in your innovation program. So you got to really look at all of them as add-ons and build ups to your existing program.
They're all opportunities to learn fast.
Yeah.
Esther, I know you've alluded to the fact that you haven't had a large-scale successful digital twin deployment, but anything you can share from examples maybe that have or have not scaled so well in Spirit Energy's journey?
Yeah, I think I probably have a few practical examples. So when we started the journey, we were all guns blazing, ready to go. we just learned Scrum, Scrum Masters, we're ready, we're doing this. And I think what we had to learn quite a lot about is, that definition of done. We kept working on something. We kept just one thing, and the product owner wanted something else. And it was like, oh yeah, we can build that. So we add that on. And then, so you're talking about one product. So we had to learn to be much better. And we're still in the learning phase, I have to say. Like, this is your product. This is what you wanted. This does your requirements. We're going to scale it and we're going to roll it out. We got a lot of feedback, and then we do Rev 2. So I think that was something that we had to learn. We just couldn't step away from one product because we kept upgrading it. And whereas now I think we have learned to definition of done, this is the requirement, and indeed learning from this, wait a minute, but this data doesn't match. Why is it not matching? Let's zoom into that. So I think we are learning whilst we are doing, and I think the big breakthrough for us has been that we have now built quite a lot of data pipelines. And once you have that scale, you can start turning them out. So for our program, it was good that we had like smaller things like automations that we gave to the company quite quick, RPAs and stuff. And then in the background, we were building data pipelines. And now we have quite a big set, and we can turn out reports quite quicker and real-time data. So I think those two, it's important to make sure that you have a good definition of done, roll it out, get the feedback, move on. And then the other bit is give little things to the company already of value whilst you are doing the hard work in the background, because nobody sees that. And it's quite, it's grafting, it's hard work. And people are like, why can I not see it? Why can I not see it? What's happening there? But the moment you have scale, you can start turning out reports and everything.
Great points. And knowing when to pause versus when to pivot versus when to persevere is a challenge for leaders, because you don't want to kill the next transformational opportunity. You don't want to keep chasing after a sunk cost that is not going to work out. Yeah, great point. We can't have everyone has their own digital twin pet project. So
true. And technology people always think that they can fix it. It's like, but I can get it done. Because they think about so many different ways, and they will get it done eventually, but maybe then the value is gone or the moment is past.
Absolutely.
So.
I know we're almost out of time. So Dana, maybe would you like to wrap us up on this one? I know you've got significant experience with scaled Agile.
Yeah. Examples looking at digital technology and including the technical people with the small agile team that they have Scrum Master and like they know what agile is, but really when it comes scaling agile, from experience we actually hit leadership. Leadership need to have agile mindset to be able to lead the change. So they need to lead by example. They need to have the agile mindset themselves so they can move forward with that. So it's not only applicable to the technical team that is building the digital twin, it's actually an organizational manifesto that needs to be shared and educated, and even leaders need to be coached on how to kind of embrace the attributes of agile and show up and
I believe Dana has fell her network.
I think Dana's frozen, so let's use that as a time. Let's wrap up here. There was a couple of live questions we didn't get to, but encourage you to reach out to the panelists, maybe on LinkedIn. Just want to thank all our panelists for taking the time today. Hope that everyone learned something about leadership and trust and how you can be successful in implementing digital twins in your organizations. And with that, thank you again for the opportunity to facilitate this panel. Over to Adam.